abgelaufen. Ich schaue gerade mal, ob wir schon zu sehen sind. Das scheint jetzt gleich loszugehen. Und jetzt müssten wir live bei Facebook sein. Ich darf euch alle ganz herzlich begrüßen, liebe Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauer auf den grünen Kanälen. Herzlich willkommen zu unserem heutigen Talk, Europe and Corona. Der Titel ist auf Englisch, so wird auch der Großteil der Diskussion ablaufen, denn wir haben heute Abend zwei Gäste, zwei junge Menschen aus Europa. Vittoria aus Italien, aus Aosta im Norden, und freue mich, dass wir damit auch die Situation in einem Land darstellen können, das ja in den deutschen Medien sehr, teilweise negativ, teilweise sehr belastet dargestellt wurde. Das Image werden wir heute ein bisschen aufpolieren und werden auch versuchen, mal einen Augenzeugenbericht zu bekommen, damit wir wissen, wie es dort wirklich abläuft. Und ich darf begrüßen aus Schweden Henry aus Brüssel heute Abend. Er ist zurzeit nicht in seiner Heimat, macht ein Praktikum beim Europäischen Parlament, das er nicht von innen sehen darf. Und Henry wird uns ein bisschen erzählen über die Situation im Land, das ja mit einem sogenannten Sonderweg durch diese Krise geht und die eine oder andere Regel, die in vielen anderen europäischen und Ländern auf der Welt umgesetzt wurde, im sogenannten Lockdown, nicht mitbefolgt hat. Das wird sehr spannend, vor allem, weil wir die Situation von jungen Menschen in den Fokus rücken wollen und unter anderem auch reden, nicht nur über den Alltag, sondern auch über die Frage, wie politischer Alltag für eine Jugendorganisation wie die Grüne Jugend auch in einem anderen europäischen Land ablaufen kann. Ich bin außerdem ganz froh, dass Lea heute Abend den Co-Host macht hier und mit mir gemeinsam diese Diskussion, dieses Gespräch moderieren wird, anhand von mehreren Überschriften, mehreren Kapitelthemen, und darf euch wieder einladen, jetzt heute zu kommentieren, Fragen zu stellen. Wenn ihr irgendwas nicht versteht, dann einfach in die Kommentare reinhauen, oder wenn ihr Lust habt, gerne auch über die Links aus der Facebook-Veranstaltung euch hier in dieses Webinar einwählt, dann könnt ihr zuschauen oder direkt bei Zoom sogar mitdiskutieren. Ja. Ich sage das jetzt einmal noch auf Deutsch, und wir werden dann auch immer wieder zwischendurch mal versuchen, das ein oder andere als Zusammenfassung zu übersetzen, weil wir sicherlich auch Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauer haben, die nicht so gut Englisch verstehen und das möglichst barrierefrei ablaufen soll heute Abend. Aber dieses Gespräch wird jetzt auf Englisch laufen, weil Vittoria und Henry natürlich nicht beide fließend Deutsch sprechen. Henry ist ziemlich gut in Deutsch, aber Vittoria nicht, und deswegen machen wir das heute in der Universalsprache English. Yeah, very nice to have you here, Vittoria and Henry. I'm glad that you joined this discussion about Europe and Corona to let us inside of the situations in Italy and Sweden. And we'll start with two short presentations, two short introductions by yourself. You can explain the situation actually in your private homes, your school situation, your working situation, about friends and family, and how the coronavirus affected your daily life. And especially for Henry, the political life, because Henry is a member of the International Committee of the Green Youth Party of Sweden. And he'll tell the name of them because I'm not very good in pronouncing it in Swedish. And I'm very happy, I'm very glad to have you, and don't know exactly who of you would like to start by introducing yourself.
I can start.
Okay, great.
Hi,
thanks.
I'm Vittoria. I'm from Italy, northern Italy, like 2 hours away from Milan and 30 minutes away from France. So yeah, the situation here, I bet you all heard about the situation of Italy in the past months. It's been bad, I'm not gonna lie, it's been pretty bad. We've been quarantining for 2 months. It's actually over now, so we're allowed to go out finally now. But quarantine was pretty rough because we had to stay home for 2 months. We weren't allowed to go out unless we had a paper signed with the reason why we were going out. And the reasons could be just for medical reasons, to get groceries or to walk your dog, but you could just go around your house to walk your dog. So yeah, it's been pretty rough, but the situation is getting better. And actually, I've been studying from home for the whole quarantine. where we've been having online classes. I'm at the last year of a high school here in Italy, and I'm about to take my final exam, which is the biggest exam of all in high school. And hopefully we're going to be able to go to school to do that, but we don't know yet. But we're still doing everything online so far. And now I'm able to go out and see my friends, which is really nice after 2 months of long quarantine. And yeah, that's been my life for the past 2 months. It's been rough, but I hope I can share it with you guys during this.
Great, thank you very much. You finally made it out of lockdown and things are getting better for the next weeks, I hope. Okay, Henry, please.
There we go. So I'm Henry. I'm from the Swedish Young Greens, Grüne Ungdom, as we say in Swedish. I'm from Stockholm, but for the duration of the lockdown, I've been here in Brussels, where, well, I was meant to be working in the European Parliament doing an internship with the Green Group, but I've been doing all that from home here in my flat here in Brussels. And as you can see, we did have a lockdown here in Brussels. I haven't been able to have a haircut since February. But it's starting to ease now, and as of this week, everything apart from bars and restaurants is reopened, but you're meant to wear a mask when you're outside. The situation, however, has been very different in Sweden, where everything pretty much has stayed open. Clubs have closed, of course. Any gatherings of 50 people or more have been cancelled. But the only real difference has been that bars and restaurants, you have to only have table service, and there has to be a minimum distance between people sitting down. But and of course, yes, but really it hasn't made a massive difference to the lives of a lot of people. Some people have started working from home, but no big changes, no lockdown like a lot of other countries.
Thank you. Can you just say a few more words about the situation in Brussels? It's a chance to have you here now, speaking for 2 countries at the same time.
Yes, so what's been interesting about Brussels in the international context and Belgium in the international context is that they've been very good at communicating everything weeks in advance. So they, at the beginning of, I think mid-March even, they set out a plan for the deconfinement, as it's called in French, of how they would exit the lockdown over the next month or 2. So they reopened public transport last week, 2 weeks ago, with the requirement that you had to have a mask on, but they're encouraging everyone to walk or take the bicycle. They reopened shops this week with the requirement that you're wearing a mask, and they will reopen the borders again on the 15th of June. But we've still been able to go for runs, go for walks, go to the supermarket, all the kind of normal stuff, not go to other people's houses over the duration of the lockdown and the confinement. But that's slowly coming to an end now.
Great, thanks. I'll try to sum up shortly in German, and then I think Lea is going to start with the next topic. Ja, was ganz spannend wurde in diesem ganz kurzen Einleitungsteil, ist jetzt schon zu sehen, dass die Länder doch unterschiedliche Regeln haben, auch im Lockdown. Also während in Italien die ersten Wochen, wie Vittoria erzählt hat, ziemlich eingeschränkt waren, man also das Haus eigentlich nur verlassen durfte, um eine Runde in der krassen Nähe, also 200 Meter oder so, mit dem Hund zu gehen, und die Leute wirklich eingesperrt waren gewissermaßen, war das in Schweden ganz anders. Nicht ganz so krass, wie es hier dargestellt wurde. Auch wir werden auf die eine oder andere Regelung noch zu sprechen kommen, gerade auch was das Bildungssystem angeht, war da ja doch etwas, auch wenn es kein Gesetz gab, das es verboten hat oder keine Verordnung, eben doch eine klare Ansage, wie man sich zu verhalten hat, was auch die meisten natürlich gemacht haben. Und in Italien hat sich das früher jetzt schon wieder lockern können als in anderen Teilen, zum Beispiel als in Belgien, während in Deutschland schon die Restaurants, das wisst ihr alle, jetzt seit einer Woche wieder geöffnet haben, man sich in kleineren Gruppen mit einem anderen Haushalt treffen kann, gibt es in Italien keine direkte Personenbeschränkung, aber zum Beispiel eine Maskenpflicht, wenn man sich mit Freunden trifft, die bei uns ja, wenn es ein anderer Haushalt ist, nicht gilt. Also ganz unterschiedliche Arten und Weisen, mit dieser Krise umzugehen und unterschiedliche Regularien, wie man sich zu verhalten hat. Das ist schon mal wieder ganz spannend und auch jetzt in den folgenden Gesprächselementen sicherlich auch nochmal Thema. Okay, so Lea, please.
I believe we can continue now with politics because I believe that Sweden and Italy are probably the most contrary examples we have in Europe. And I would like to ask you, how did this whole COVID-19 thing start? I mean, we in Germany, for example, we already knew, okay, it's happening in China, oh, it's happening in Italy, okay, but when did it arrive at your home and when did you realize, okay, that's something bigger?
So it was all really fast. Over almost a week, it was from 0 to like a whole lot all around Northern Europe. So it was kind of weird for us to hear about it because at first everybody was like, yeah, it's just the flu. We don't need to worry about it. But after a couple of days where the situation was actually getting worse and the hospitals were getting full of people, people started to panic. So our government decided to institute a lockdown, complete lockdown for, it was initially for like a month, but then they got it bigger. So it was 2 months after that. So it was weird at first because we thought it was just a China thing, but then it got real. And luckily we're almost out of it. I'm not saying we're out of it yet, but situation is getting normal again. We're getting back to our normal lives. We can go out now. We can see friends, but still keeping face masks on and keeping distances. But it's getting better. So like here in my region, I live right by France, as I said. For a couple of days, we had 0 new cases, 0 deaths, which is a good and hopeful result for the past week. So yeah, it was weird for us all. At first, when I went to get groceries just once, and seeing the city empty, totally empty, was almost a dystopian novel kind of setting. It was really weird at first, but it got real and people started to figure out what actually it was and stay home. So we almost all accepted the quarantine thing and stayed home for the sake of our country.
Okay, one quick question. Do you have maybe a theory why Italy has been hit so hard, so fast by this virus? Do you think maybe the government could have done something differently?
I don't really know because I feel like everything happened so fast, and the lockdown decision was actually a big decision the government had to make. So I guess they waited a little bit, but it was just like a matter of a week. And just to understand what was actually going on, because it was new. We were the first Western country to get infected. So it was new for all of us. And I think the government, yeah, they could have done it before to avoid the big spreading of the virus, but I think they did well waiting for a little bit just to understand what was actually going on. And I think it got so fast around because nobody knew about it. Everything said it was a flu at first, so nobody would know how to prevent the spreading of it. And I feel like this is just what happened because other countries in Europe that got it after us kind of knew what was going to happen. So they already kind of knew they couldn't like go too close to other people. So even if the government hadn't quarantined and said to lock down yet, people knew this was a thing and how this worked. I think that Italy didn't know that, and that's what did the worst for us.
Okay, thank you. Henry, how did Sweden experience it, and how maybe in comparison to Belgium? Yeah, maybe is there any difference, or do you feel like that both countries did really well?
I think the approach was certainly different. Whereas I think in Belgium you saw the the measures were slowly, well, first they had to form a government here because they didn't have one to begin with, and they formed one especially to have a government to deal with the coronavirus, because Belgium often doesn't have governments. Whereas that was the case here, and once that happened, they were able to start enacting measures. In Sweden, it was more of a slow process of, it first came to Sweden when tourists who'd come back from northern Italy on skiing trips came to Sweden, and this meant that some of the first people infected were generally young, relatively well-off professionals. But it also meant there was a lot of time for the health system to prepare. So beyond that, there was, the government was perhaps a bit slow in working to remove some of the bureaucratic hurdles to buying masks and some of the supply chain issues there. I think there hasn't been very much criticism internally in Sweden about the way the government has gone, the things the government has done. It's been relatively, things were done when they had to be, and that was okay. In Belgium, there's been a little bit of confusion about the specificities of some of the rules, but nothing major here. No real major criticisms over the broad strokes of the policy.
Oh, okay, thank you. Ich denke, wir könnten auch noch mal eine deutsche Zusammenfassung machen. Genau, also was eben ziemlich deutlich hervorgekommen ist, dass in Italien die ganze Situation innerhalb von einer Woche von 0 auf 100 gegangen ist, dass Italien eben auch eines der ersten westlichen Länder war, die von diesem Virus betroffen worden sind. Und dass sie auch in dem Fall auch nicht wirklich wussten, was sie damit anfangen sollen, da wir in Deutschland zum Beispiel Zeit hatten, uns darauf vorzubereiten. In Schweden hingegen ist der Eindruck eigentlich ziemlich stark, dass die schwedische Regierung zeitig gehandelt hat, mit Bedacht gehandelt hat und auch die schwedische Bevölkerung eine hohe Zufriedenheit mit ihrer Regierung hat. In Belgien hingegen war es doch etwas chaotisch, so wie ich es verstanden habe. Aber auch dort konnte man sich eigentlich sehr gut auf diese Situation einstellen, und Italien fällt somit einfach leider die Bürde zu, das erste Land zu sein, was so wirklich davon betroffen worden ist.
Maybe I could add some question to that topic by asking how in your country, in your opinion, the way others European neighbors probably did is reflected or transferred. So I also already said in Germany, the Swedish way especially is everywhere in media as a bad example, rising death numbers and well, freedom versus the life of the individual. And the Italian way was moreover well explained as a chaos or as a problematic situation, as a scenario we should have in every case try to avoid. Probably you could say something about probably how the German way is reflected in or is presented in media in Italy or in Sweden, because after 2 or 3 weeks the first demonstrations started, the first protests started, and people always took the Swedish example as ideal case in comparison to the situation here, even though the death rate is really, really low in Germany, especially in our region where Leah and I'm from. I think we have less than 400 cases and 2 or 3 dead people in a region where 260,000 people live. So really low rates, but really high protests in the other side. I don't know who would like to start.
I can start then. So it's the way in Sweden, the fact that the Swedish response has been so different to other countries' responses has been explained partially in that we had a bit more time, and also the outbreak was geographically timed differently, so that we had a lot of cases in Stockholm, and then the case numbers there dropping while we had higher cases in other parts of the country. So there was a possibility to shift resources around the country a little bit. But it was also, it was described as being different because the Swedish response was led almost entirely by the Public Health Agency, because it's a quirk of the Swedish state that in times of disaster, the government is effectively sidelined and a lot more power goes to these agencies. And the German method is being seen as they did a lot of testing very quickly, and you have a lot of healthcare capacity there, which a lot more than most other countries, and therefore you're able to nip it in the bud, so to speak. Whereas the countries with lockdowns were seen as this is the politicians giving people what they think they want. So far, the protest in Sweden, there have been 2 people who protest the head of the Public Health Agency every time, and that's because they want to have a lockdown, not the opposite. Yeah.
Well, I feel like people here were looking at Germany like, why are they making it and we're not making it? Because you guys had way less deaths than we had at the same time. And everybody was like, wait, our health system is not as good as theirs. What's going on? But I feel like I heard that you guys were counting deaths. I'm not saying that you had as much as of a spread around, but you were counting deaf people in a different way than we did. That's what I heard. We counted people that died with coronavirus, while you guys were counting people that died because of coronavirus. And I feel like a lot of people were looking at the numbers, the different numbers between Germany and Italy, and kind of freaking out and be like, Italy sucks. Why are we making this thing so badly? But I feel like a lot of people didn't know about this. But still, Germany was a big point of reference for Italy, where we wanted to go, but we weren't really able to go there because basically our government cut a lot of funds to healthcare in the past years. So our hospitals weren't objectively ready for this. And I guess you guys were more ready for this in terms of hospitals and healthcare funds. And I guess that's what made the major difference. And talking about Sweden, I feel like everybody here doesn't understand why Sweden is doing that. Because here we were forced in our house for 2 months, and seeing other people having freedom and doing things is unacceptable for us. Because why do we have to be in our house for 2 months and they can do whatever they want, go see their friends? Like, it was really tough for us to accept that. And I mean, I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong, because who knows? We're not experts. Like, it's just a different decision the government's made. But I feel like everybody was looking at Sweden like in a crazy, like they were crazy for us. Why did we have to do all the things and take care of and to stay safe while they were just like going around? I think that's what happened in Italian people's minds the most.
Ja, thanks. Thank you very much. Ich versuche mal ganz kurz zusammenzufassen. Die Frage war, oder die Situation war, wie wird die jeweilige andere europäische Situation in den Ländern wahrgenommen? Also Vergleiche werden automatisch gezogen. In Deutschland ging es ja immer um die Frage, sind wir der Mittelweg zwischen der italienischen Situation, die ausartet, und der schwedischen Situation, die das komplette Gegenteil davon ist? Ja, die sogenannte Präventionsparadox, also hier durch die Lockdown-Maßnahmen passiert nichts, bleibt es ruhig. Italien war zu spät, Schweden war es zu früh, deswegen ist alles richtig gemacht worden, was natürlich auch eine sehr egoistische Darstellung ist. In Schweden war es so, dass es wenig Zweifel gab an den Maßnahmen der Regierung und ja, man im Endeffekt die Situation in anderen Ländern einfach deswegen anders war, weil die Länder auch anders sind, ja, weil das System anders ist. Während in Italien die Situation in Deutschland so ein bisschen mit Neid betrachtet wurde, besseres Gesundheitssystem. Wir haben ja, wenn man mal im internationalen Vergleich schaut, die höchste Anzahl an Intensivbetten. Man hat sich aber gefragt, wie kriegen die das hin, dass es da so ruhig bleibt? Und Schweden gewissermaßen auch mit Unverständnis dann wurde, wie kann es sein, dass wir hier 2 Monate lang eingepfercht sind und uns an die Maßnahmen halten und auch wirklich das tun und uns einschränken und diesen Verzicht üben, während in Schweden das Leben normal weitergeht? Wie kann das funktionieren? Ja? Und das, jetzt, um das schon mal an der Stelle zu sagen, trägt natürlich nicht zu einer erstarkenden europäischen Solidarität bei. Da kommen wir jetzt gleich nochmal drauf. I just said that this is probably not the best way, this looking how others are doing and being, well, not satisfied with the situation is not the best way to increase European solidarity and yeah, this idea of the union. Yeah. Okay, so Leah is going on with politics a bit. But you are muted. Sorry. Yes, now.
Yes, no worries. So since Henry already said that the Swedish people were pretty happy with their situation, also since they, I mean, I believe it's a big difference if you have only a strict advice in comparison to being locked down in your house, not being able to leave your house for grocery shopping. But I believe that's really, really rough. And so I'm asking you, Vittoria, have there been any demonstrations in Italy against this, maybe on the internet or something? And is there maybe a difference in the general mood and the different generations? So are maybe old people less satisfied or young people angry?
So I feel like for the first time, we're actually happy with our government. Like after so many years of always saying that government is not doing things right, we're actually happy with their decision for once. Like most of the youth is, we think that what they did is actually the right decision, as what we're seeing like now. And there hasn't been a lot of protests because people are just accepting it. They saw how many deaf people there were in the past months. So we all panicked and we're all happy to be sent home almost. So the lockdown was accepted by most of the population. But I feel like elders were harder to convince about it. Like my grandma kept going out for like a month during quarantine with the excuse of going to get groceries. So she couldn't understand why she couldn't go out and why all this lockdown thing was happening. So I feel like elders with the more traditional thought saw this lockdown as a freedom, as a lack of freedom for them. So they couldn't accept to stay home and just do nothing about it. They wanted to still do their habits, go out, see their friends, or just go get coffee. But then when actually the lockdown got serious and they saw like friends of them dying because of it, because elders were the most affected by it, they stayed home. They understood to stay home. It was a long process. It was harder for elders to understand the whole thing, but I feel like actually younger generations were more accepting than elders.
Okay, thank you. Henry, is there maybe any difference in Sweden to this, or was really everyone happy with those measurements?
So there's been a bit of debate around specifically the economic measures that have been taken to. The Swedish economy is very, very export dependent. And so despite not locking down, there's still been a severe economic hit. And there's debate about that. And there's also been some debate around how the coronavirus got into the old people's homes, which it did. And we do have one of the highest death rates per capita in the world. It doesn't seem that high because we're a relatively small country. And so the absolute number isn't that high in comparison. So that has been talked about a little bit, but it has been confined to newspaper articles and back and forths on newspapers and other debate forums. But there hasn't been any real protest in the streets or mass movements or anything like that. Which, to put that in comparison, Sweden has a long history of big mass movements and big street protests. So yes, that there isn't one is quite telling.
Could I just shortly push into and ask, I read somewhere that in Sweden, in hospitals, not only in the corona situation, but all the time, the ethical question, how to treat an elderly person, is much more of a thing than it is in other countries. That means that if the doctors ask before they do an operation or some treatment, they ask, is the person in which condition is it? Is it worth doing it? Is he or she living a good life afterwards? Is that a thing young people in Sweden do know about, or is it a thing you socialize with? Or probably can say some words about that. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I don't know in general cases, but I presume what I've heard from friends who are doctors that it is definitely considered. Will this be of benefit? Will this aid the person in the long run? So on and so forth. But I think what you're referring to is at the height of the crisis, the state, how do I translate that? State regulatory board for medical supervision, if that makes sense. They create, along with the social department of the government, created guidelines for, in the case of undercapacity on intensive care wards, how do you prioritize people so that to ensure that doctors wouldn't be left making those ethical decisions on their own. And it was implemented in some hospitals for about 2-3 weeks, where the age-adjusted remaining years of healthy life were taken into account on should this person be given a ventilator, considering we have not many ventilators. But this was only put into practice for a very limited amount of time, and only at Stockholm hospitals. So I'm sure this will come out in a year or two in reports, in the final report that's going to be done. But I don't think this affected that many people as a whole, considering that the death rate in Sweden is only 4,000 in total.
Okay, thank you. Dann fassen wir noch mal kurz auf Deutsch zusammen. Wir haben unter anderem eben die Frage gestellt, wie die Situation in Italien wahrgenommen wird, wie im Vergleich zu den Demonstrationen, die wir gerade erfahren, ob die Italiener zufrieden sind mit dem, was ihre Regierung gemacht hat. Wir holen uns noch mal vor Augen, dass sie wirklich eingesperrt wurden, regelrecht. Und erstaunlicherweise sind die Italiener zum ersten Mal glücklich mit den Maßnahmen ihrer Regierung. Wenn das aber auch erstmal zunächst nur die jungen Leute betrifft, einfach weil die Menschen gesehen haben, wie ganz viele einfach wegsterben, sehr schnell, sehr viele, weshalb sie auch wirklich Angst hatten. In älteren Generationen hingegen hat das etwas gedauert, bis die Überzeugung von der Gefahr dieses Viruses angelangt ist. Aber an sich sind die Italiener schon glücklich mit diesen Maßnahmen. In Schweden hingegen wurde öfters über die ökonomischen Maßnahmen geredet, einfach da Schweden ein Land ist, was stark vom Export abhängig ist, ob diese Maßnahmen so wichtig sind. Vor allem wurde auch darüber debattiert, wie es passieren konnte, dass eben das Coronavirus in Altenheimen landet. Wie konnte das passieren, wird da ganz oft gefragt. Aber so an sich, wie gesagt, trotz dass Schweden eigentlich ein Land ist, was sehr viel auf die Straße geht, sehr viel protestiert, gab es überhaupt keine Proteste. Ja, wir haben auch eben nochmal angesprochen, dass in Schweden unter anderem geschaut wird in Krankenhäusern. Also es wurden Regularien erlassen, dass man auch schaut, wie lange eine Person noch leben könnte, und man schaut, ob man ihr ein Beatmungsgerät gibt. Diese Praktiken wurden aber nur sehr, sehr wenig angewandt, einfach auch, weil Schweden nur 4.000 Tote hatte und generell mehr Zeit hatte und besser mit den ganzen Fällen umgehen konnte. Yeah. Okay, so now, since you are the Green Party, we would like to ask you something about how the Grüne Youth reacted in Sweden. How did this whole thing affect your political work, and do you feel any differences? Have you been able to reach out as far as you could if you were in person, or is there any difference?
Yeah, so internally it's meant that we've shifted all our meetings online. We've tried to avoid travel. Our board usually meets, our national board usually meets once a month in person, and they've shifted that online. And all the local meetings have been moved online as well. But a lot of the public work has kept going. So I know that for International Women's Day, for example, a lot of the local green organizations were out with a meter between them, giving out cookies and flyers and all that sort of thing, and pins. We like pins. But I think it's also meant, paradoxically, people have had a lot more time for politics. So we've seen a lot more debate articles to the editor, where you write an article for a newspaper saying you should do this. We've seen and a lot of discussion around, for example, the situation of refugees in Greece, especially during the Corona crisis. We've been trying to push that a lot because we think there's more that the government can do. But yeah, it's not an election year, so it would be a slow political year for us anyway.
Okay, so thank you for your quick report. Also noch ganz kurz zur Grünen Jugend Schweden. An sich ist deren politische Arbeit eigentlich stärker geworden, sogar da man jetzt eben mehr Zeit hat. Es wurden immer noch Treffen veranstaltet. Es gab sogar am Weltfrauentag Keksverteilungen in verschiedenen Städten. Also schon recht toll, und vor allem ein großer Unterschied, der mir jetzt gerade zu Deutschland auffällt, ist, dass zum Beispiel sehr viel über die Situation von Flüchtlingen in Griechenland gesprochen wurde, was ich definitiv nicht von Deutschland sagen kann. Also leider nicht. Yeah, exactly. Vittoria, I just said we were talking about that Sweden actually focused more on things happening outside of Europe, especially refugee crises, and in comparison to us in Germany, didn't happen that much of a focus on this at all. So yeah, kind of a difference. Yeah.
Sorry, I think there was a slight misunderstanding there.
Oh, sorry.
No, I meant that it's given the organization time to talk about what's happening in Greece and all that, but whether or not we've actually broken through in the media and gotten anywhere is an entirely different question. So the media is still only talking about coronavirus, but the political work has been trying to focus on that.
Oh, okay. I mean, however, as long as it's still kind of a topic, I think it's not too bad, but there definitely have to be done things. Okay, so Moritz, would you like to continue with European solidarity, or?
Sure. That's one of the questions we got in our discussion here by Omar, who is a member of the Green Youth Hesse. He asked, if we look to the future, what kind of European solidarity is needed and how should it be distributed? So I think we'll come to that solidarity topic as well at the moment. So you could just try to answer that question if you like to, focusing also on the question of how quick should the European systems return to normalized situations as open borders and travel programs like Erasmus and all that student exchange programs that lead to that solidarity and that unity again. I don't know if Vittoria, you probably could start by telling, because you came back from an exchange year, not in Europe, but from an exchange situation, so you know how it is to.
I went for an exchange year in the United States, and that actually, I feel like visiting other countries and see other cultures is one of the most important things you can do, and one of the best ways to spend your money, I think. And I feel like having an open Europe is the basis of this. Like, you have to be able to go around without special permissions or your passport. Like, I feel like projects like Discover EU, like Interrail or Erasmus, are really important for people to understand how a part of the world actually works and see new people and new cultures and understand a new way of life. And I feel like this initiative that you guys did can help that as well. So an open Europe starts with knowing other people around the world and knowing their point of view of the world and what's going on in their country and what they think about the European Union and all that stuff. So I feel like having an open Europe is really important. And being this young as I am, and having always seen an open Europe, I don't know what world would be with a closed border Europe. I wouldn't imagine a world like that. Like, I've been used to go around and see places without even questioning if I could be there, if I needed a visa to go there, or being accepted in that country. And I feel like this is really important. Yeah.
Thanks for the words. I think none of us has, yeah, we all knew only Europe with open borders, and we'll hope to have them soon back again. Probably, Henry, you can also focus on the question how the European neighbors should, or European friends should react to situations in the South, especially in the South, because, you know, it hit very hard, financially very problematic situation. And yeah, others should help normally, is solidary, but they are not. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I should clarify for this portion that my views are my own and are not necessarily shared by my youth organization, as we are having a long internal discussion about just this point at the moment. Yeah, I think anyone who's been following the news on this, the current French-German solidarity package for the EU, which would involve, I won't get into the details, but it would involve lots of solidarity for southern countries and countries hit heavily by the coronavirus. Know that Sweden is one of the so-called frugal four. I'm not sure how that would translate into German. Countries, the countries which are saying that this should be loans, not grants, that the money should be paid back. And I personally think this is very disappointing that the government the Swedish government isn't standing up for solidarity in Europe when we need it the most, when we're at the most risk since the financial crisis, since forever of things falling apart. And there are definitely those who think that this is too much to ask, that we already pay too much to Europe, that yeah, and all these things. But I think, especially when we're at risk of losing it all, we need to double down, invest more, make sure that we keep the amazing thing we have. That living in Sweden, I'm so used to, I've been involved in organizations like the Federation of Young European Greens for quite a few years now, and it just feels so weird to me that I'm 100 kilometers away from the Dutch border, but I can't go, and probably can't go for another month, and about the same distance from the German border. That these borders are closed. It's a weird and strange. It just feels so strange at the moment. Yes.
Great, thanks. You know, so it's, of course, it's always about money. It's about the question of well, transferring money in a fair way. But I think it's not only about money. We see, especially for the South, the situation, I think, that led to this catastrophic situation concerning the health system lies deeply in the economic crisis of the last 10 years ago. So if we would have went out of that last crisis in a better way, in a way of solidarity, that problems we have now might not have been appeared. So the question of that talk today is, how can we get out of that crisis? What can we learn to make better for the next time? Because we definitely know the next one is coming. Might be another pandemic, might be another economic crisis, which looks to appear very soon now, but could be another. Could be a climate crisis we are heading on, especially in the South. What do you think what we should learn from that crisis, especially concerning the social systems? Should there be a European social system, something like a European, what's it called? Mindestlohn, I don't know the English word. Do you know?
Minimum wage.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so the problem that the problem with the European minimum wage and is that several European countries don't have minimum wages for different reasons. The Nordics generally don't have minimum wages because we have a system where in every sector of the economy, the union sets a wage, which is the minimum wage, and it is illegal to pay someone less than that wage, but it is not defined in law. And this makes any European minimum wage a serious risk to the entire union bargaining system of the Nordic countries. And the reason why when the European minimum wage is being discussed, well, was being discussed before the coronavirus in Brussels, there was very, very severe skepticism from all the Nordics, including from left-wing parties, that this may risk the breakdown of the very good employee relations that we've had in the Nordics for since the Second World War. But on the other hand, a European minimum wage or something along those lines could be very useful for ensuring that the differences in standards of living in wages aren't so dramatically different across the European Union. But I think it's also interesting to remember here that the US, the potential, what the EU might look like, the good bits, that it's one country. They don't have a national minimum wage. The minimum wage there differs dramatically from state to state, and also the standard of living, and also average wage. So there are two sides to this, I think.
I feel like, sorry, I feel like this situation, as we were talking before, is really going to help us and help the European Union get closer together, because we're understanding that we actually need each other to keep living. Because now it's Italy, where we're in a rough situation. Tomorrow it could be any other country. We need each other to keep living well and keep living together. And I feel like this crisis helped realizing that for all of us, because some people were still doubting that before the crisis. They wanted to be alone. But I think that what we saw here is that we need each other. And like, I don't understand the recent facts that happened, like Sweden not wanting to like participate to this loan. I don't know. And I really don't understand that, because I feel like if you are part of the European Union, you want to be in it when it's good and when it's bad. If you want something good for you, you have to give something good for other people. And I don't know. And there's an Italian saying that united, we're stronger. So I feel like this really applies here, and the crisis is making realize that for once.
That sounds great, because I somehow have the impression that this crisis also, even in the long run, strengthens the right-wing people and populism and fake news and all that stuff, because nationalism with borders up is the newest thing. Everyone is looking on how can we save German people? How can we save our industry, our economy? Now everybody, because the worst thing is done, everyone's talking about making vacation in Germany. It reminds me a lot of Germany first, and might be the same in Italy, in Austria, wherever, in Spain. Why should it be better to make vacation in Germany, seen up of the climate effects, than to make a vacation in Italy? Because a lot of regions depend on tourism. They live on tourism only. A lot of European countries, especially in the south, Greece, if we just stop that, a lot of people won't have income for the next month. So I'm not really sure if that is the thing we learn about that crisis, to stay in our own countries and to make borders up because the virus can't cross borders. That's really dumb, you know all that. So I hope that you're right and things are going to change, but I could also imagine that something, a basic income, is coming out of this crisis. Some countries are discussing it now, but we'll see what is staying in 2 or 3 months. Germany is discussing about a car. If you buy a new car, you might get a prime for that. So that might not be the best idea. A few hours ago, they told that German Lufthansa, the airline, getting $9 billion euros funding, and a lot of little restaurants get nothing. And say, what? Yeah. So probably young people are a bit more enthusiastic or motivated about things we could learn about that. But we'll see if that also changes elections, because Italy, especially Italy, has a very problematic situation at the moment, right?
I mean, yeah, the right-wing parties are really in right now, apparently. And yeah, but I think this, so the main leader of the right-wing party actually said a lot of not real stuff, spread a lot of fake news. And I feel like people are starting to understand who those kind of people actually are. But I don't know, like, I'm not here to say right wing is bad or left wing is bad. I'm here to say we need someone to get out of this crisis and make it well. And I feel like having Europe helping us could be the solution. And I feel like if Europe is going to help us, the government is going to say, stay in Europe, not stay in Italy. So, and if we all stay in Italy, like if Italians stay in Italy, Germans stay in Germany, money, I know it's not all about money, but it is. In fact, money is just going to stay there. We're not going to have economics all around anymore. And I feel like if Europe starts to say, stay in Europe, go around Europe, start discovering Europe, it's going to get better for all of us, because Italy is going to get tourists from around the world and Germany is going to get tourists from around the world. So yeah, I feel like this is better and more healthy for the economic system as well.
Would you like, or you don't have to, as you like?
So yeah, I think the Swedish political system is scarily similar, though, to the Italian one at the moment. We have a very strong, very far-right party, which is gaining in the polls and has been slowly gaining in the polls for the last 10 years or so. And we have a government which is the left wing uniting with the centrists and a bit of the right wing in order to make sure that that party stays out of government. It's eerily similar, but the effect has been the opposite. Here we've seen that the governing party, the Social Democrats, they're polling the best they have in 5-10 years because of this crisis, and the far right party has gone down significantly. Not because of the kind of nationalism we've seen in newspapers, because that is what we've been seeing here, well, not here, but in Sweden, with the newspapers every day saying we're doing the best method and everyone else is wrong. But instead, I think we're seeing people return to the parties of the parties of the establishment, rather than the weird far right people who are new and say that everything is wrong and should be torn down and rebuilt.
Yeah, but it also leads to, unfortunately, to decreasing numbers for the Greens, right? That's the situation in Germany. We're up to nearly 20% 2.5 months ago, because everyone was talking about climate and about drought and things that are happening outside now. We have a catastrophic situation in the forests and on our here in our agricultural situations, but people are not interested in that. And yeah, probably they will change. That's our hope. And probably another thing will change out of that crisis, and that's what Lea is going to talk about now, especially topic education. I think we just missed it, and we'll do that now to finish with.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, I believe education is as simple as it seems maybe in comparison to Europe, I believe it's one of the most important topics, as well as in like even in Germany, we have so many little states and education is everywhere different. But how do you feel in Italy and Sweden about digitalization, and how did the government cope with the fact that you have, especially you, Vittoria, you have to graduate from school, but how do you have to weigh your life against going to school, making your A-levels, or is there any other solution?
So lately, all my classes have been online, and for the first time, some teachers that had even never opened a computer are doing online classes and sharing stuff with us, which I feel is a big step for us because school wasn't digitalized at all before that. In my school, we don't even have a computer room. So everything is on paper. Well, I think we need to make that step. And I know coronavirus is bad, but I think it's helping us to do so and to go forward and adapt to what a lot of other countries are doing, because I feel like we're far behind after some countries. Like in my experience in the United States, everything was on a computer. All the essays I wrote were on a computer. We didn't have books. No books. I have like 50 books here for a year now. So I don't know. I feel like this crisis is helping us a whole lot to digitalize and go to another step further. And that works for working too. Everyone that can smart work, they're smart working now. And it's good. I mean, there's not that big of a difference than from being in an office to work in a house with your computer. And we really need that. And I feel like this is going to help us to go through better education in the future. As I was saying, I was talking to them before, we were talking about how we wanted our education changed. And I feel like Italy focuses a lot on the past. We all know, everyone in Italy knows a whole lot of facts that are basically useless. So we don't need to know all the dates of a Roman Empire, all the emperors or such things. I mean, we need to have a certain idea of that, but I feel like we need to know more of what's going on in the world right now. We need to talk about climate change. We need to talk about racism. We need to talk about that stuff, which is not really talked about in Italy at all. So I feel like, yeah, this needs to be done, but digitalization is going to help to step forward and get a new kind of school, I hope.
Thank you. Henry, so you already said it's kind of normal that high school students receive a computer.
Yes, when I started high school 8 years ago now, I'm too old. When I started high school 8 years ago now, we all got a laptop from the school. And we were allowed to keep it after 3 years if we wanted, and paid 30 euros. But it's been, when I was in the school below that, even the one you go to before gymnasium and all that, we didn't get laptops from the school, but there was a giant computer room and you were expected to submit all your essays online, or at the very least typed, definitely not written by hand. But I also think, yeah, this crisis hasn't really changed anything for the Swedish school system with regards to digitalization, because because only gymnasium and universities have closed, gymnasium and equivalent high schools. So lower schools have stayed open, but also there's always been a long tradition of high school and university from a distance in Sweden. A lot of people do courses online on a weekly basis. So nothing much has had to change for that. It's very much business as usual there. The difference has been for some high schools, the issue with tests in their final year, but students have been allowed to come back into the schools to do the tests. We have a tradition of going around on the back of a truck, throwing beer at people when you graduate. And that's been one of the actually main debate points for youth organizations, that some want this to still happen despite the coronavirus, and others, most of them are, no, this is a terrible idea. So that's, yeah, it hasn't changed very much here.
Okay, I mean, I think there's so much potential to talk about so many issues. So I learned a lot here. I didn't know so many things, and I believe there's so many things we could talk about, but I mean, it's now 9 o'clock. And yes, I just also wanted to say thank you to the Green Youth of Sweden for sending you to us. Really helped to understand this whole situation. I also wanted to say again, thank you to Vittoria for being open to this discussion, and also for just contributing so much. There are so many informations, and I believe it was really, really great.
Yes, I could just thank you as well, especially Leah for organizing that, for planning it. She was responsible for that in the time in the last 2 weeks. Thank you very much. Yeah, you guys watching us did not really ask a lot of questions and comment a lot, but you could still do that. The video will be remaining online, and yeah, we'd love to answer them afterwards. And I'll hope that we 4 will stay in touch. We'll stay in contact for the next time, and probably we'll just repeat that someday after the corona problematic, to talk about European unity and young people in Europe and the European Union as instrument to solve international or cross-border problems for a better world. Yes, so grazie mille, and yeah, Henry, yeah, please, sure, you can say something, yeah.
Sorry, if I can, yes, just quickly, thank you everyone who was watching for watching. If you're interested in these kinds of questions, if you're interested in meeting people from other green organizations around Europe, the Federation of Young European Greens in normal years organizes many exchanges and events where you can go. It's normally financed by the European Union. So you can go for free and meet other Greens from around Europe and discuss interesting topics like these for a week. And I'd strongly recommend applying. And FIEG also organizes weekly webinars during the coronavirus pandemic, which you can find on the Facebook page, the Federation of Young European Greens. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, guys. So then we'll say goodbye, and wishing everyone a nice remaining evening and good health. Goodbye.